Hello, you are watching This Week in Student Government. I'm Jorie Palmer. Today we get an update from Monday night's meeting and we meet with the author of the ATM legislation. All this coming up next. Sergeant of Arms Eli Morlett wrote a few pieces of legislation. He joins us in the studio to discuss this legislation and upcoming elections. Hello, Eli. Thank you so much for coming today.
Pleasure to be here.
Okay, now can you tell us a little bit about the ATM legislation?
The ATM legislation is actually quite simple. All it asked for originally was to put a new ATM in the Shuttler Tower so that the students that live there can have 24-hour access to an ATM machine. Now, what we found out during the first reading was that there will be an ATM put there through the Hire One program that's coming up, but everyone getting a Hire One card, it'll be a Hire One ATM machine. So the legislation did pass, but in the attempt to put a third ATM somewhere else on campus.
Where is that third ATM going to go?
The Executive Council of Cameron University will decide that, along as if they can even get one from a bank, they'll be willing to put another ATM on campus. So we have no idea what bank is going to be or if they're going to do it, but our effort right now is to get a third one.
What is the procedure to get an ATM put in? You have to meet with banks, or who does all that?
It's really the banks. It actually costs the school nothing except for supplying electricity to the ATM machine.
Okay.
The bank would decide if it's going to make enough money because the ATM costs about $2,000 roughly from what I researched, and the bank would decide just if they're gonna do we want to put one there? Is it gonna make enough money for us, or is everyone gonna really notice it? So it's really the Executive Council looks at what banks want to do, and their bank would do the bid on it.
How does the Aggie card work, the new card?
The Hire One card, from my understanding, is going to be a card that's going to be issued to everyone that's a student at Cameron University, and it's going to handle, it's a new way to handle the refunds. And I believe grants and scholarships such, if you have extra money that's going to be refunded to you, or if you have a class that you withdrew from and you can get money back from, the Hire One acts as a debit card. So instead of going to the cashier's office, you were having a Hire One account, just withdraw the money out of the ATM. And that is the money that you got from Cameron University. But
the ATM will work for other debit cards
yes.
as well. Now, my question is, why can't we put money onto the card to pay? Wouldn't that minimize lines? How come we can only get money back with the card?
Jennifer Holland, or Dean Holland, sorry, has just put the pregame announcement out. So we will learn more about it as time comes. We should be issued the card, I believe, in the beginning of May over the next few weeks. So we'll find out, the whole student body will find out exactly how everything's going to work and what we can do and what we can't do.
Okay, well, thank you. Now we're going to look at some other pieces of new legislation in just a moment. But first, our CUTV reporter, Amanda Finch, has some footage from Monday night's meeting.
Senators are attempting to enforce CU's campus tobacco regulations. This week in SGA, Senator Matt Neese and Senator Joshua Oates presented legislation that encourages campus public safety officers to issue a Cameron University citation to any person found to be in noncompliance with the university's smoking regulations. The current policy states that there is no smoking allowed within 25 feet of any entrance to any building. However, many ashtrays are placed just outside of building entrances. There seems to be a general disregard for the smoke-free zones and the 25 feet rule around the campus. Tobacco smoke can lead to lung cancer, emphysema, heart disease, and many other health problems. The American Cancer Society warns secondhand smoke can have the same health effects as directly inhaled smoke. Senator Neese and Senator Oates propose fines should be issued for those caught smoking too close to building entrances. The senators state that this bill's purpose is not to oppose or offend those who choose to use tobacco on campus, but to protect the health of those who choose not to smoke. The citation would work about the same as a parking ticket, which puts a hold on your student status until paid for. Authors state offenders may make appeals of a citation to the Student Supreme Court just like they would for most other offenses. They believe enforcement would give greater incentive for those who smoke tobacco on campus to follow the 25 feet rule and provide a healthier campus environment. The resolution will move into second reading at next week's meeting. For This Week in SGA, I'm Amanda Finch.
Thank you. Another piece of legislation that you authored was the PR legislation.
Yes.
Can you give us some background on that?
The PR legislation will relieve a lot of stress off the Executive Council of the student government in the process that we're going to have the standing committee that's, as long as it's ratified in the next Constitution hearing, that will always be around to make sure that the community, the campus, other students, the general student body knows everything that's going on about student government in hopes of spanning general knowledge and influence for the Student Government Association. Right now, I know we have the Collegian, we have the great, CU TV show that we have that you guys give us, and my question on that was, is it enough? While the CU TV show, the SGA show does an amazing job of putting the information out there, there are so many locations where either it's not played or people can't have the time to sit and watch it.
Right.
So one of the goals that has been set forth for the PR committee will be there'll be every 2 weeks you'll see a newsletter coming from the PR committee, and you'll always know what's going on about SGA. You know about the legislation that's been passed or has failed, and give point of contact so that people can notify, hey, this is an issue that I feel like this is something's wrong. And all this, like I said, is in hopes of expanding knowledge and influence, and then later on SGA will grow out of this.
Are the people on the committee going to be PR majors?
Not necessarily, but we would hope that a lot of communications major would be in there. But some people, I know, like myself for a while, I was in a communications major,
right?
But I always had an interest in doing so. So people that have an interest and have a passion for doing something like this, it'd be great to have them in the committee. And the only, I think, set people that we're going to have on the committee right now is a webmaster. The webmaster must be part of the PR committee.
So will there be a PR website associated with the committee?
We actually have an SGA website.
Okay.
But it hasn't been updated very frequently, so that's why people probably don't know much about it. But again, that'll be part of the PR committee's job to make sure that website is constantly updated.
Will the committee be focusing on other community information, or are they only going to focus on Cameron? For instance, will the newsletter be set up in the community as well?
One of the big things is that if we do something big on Cameron's campus that's going to change what people look at us, I hope the PR committee is going to contact KSWO, the Law and Constitution, so that the community knows that, hey, these student leaders are doing something big on campus that's going to affect not only them, but we're going to see it too.
Okay. Now, Amanda Finch brought up the smoking legislation.
Yes.
I know that this legislation has come up year after year, the 25 feet rule.
Yes.
How come it is not enforced, and what are you going to do to enforce it?
Why is it not enforced? Actually, that's a question that needs to be brought up with Cameron policies,
right,
or those policy enforcers like the security and everything. But right now what it's saying is make sure that constantly the police officers must make sure that the ashtrays, at the very least, are placed away, that people who are smoking are told to leave.
Okay.
That it's just reminding everyone that don't do this. If you do this, there'll be a fine. And there actually is, I don't remember the exact cost, but there will be a fine instated for Cameron police to use.
Okay.
It'll be a Cameron citation, not city citation.
So the legislation deals with the fine?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's just like I said, it's to make sure that the policy is enforced. And the biggest complaint were maybe some people with asthma or people that are off campus, if you see just people just smoking right outside the doors, it's not exactly a good appearance all the time. While people might argue with it or the comfort of smoking outside of class, the truth is it is a law, a state law, and it does need to be enforced.
Now, SGA has some elections coming up.
Yes.
Can you give us any background on who will be running?
I'm actually I don't know if I'm allowed to do that or not,
okay.
And also I don't know everyone that's going to be filed, but though tomorrow filing ends and you will be seeing the campaign, you'll be seeing the people running, including myself, that it's going to be the next, hopefully next leaders for SGA. So be looking for that. Elections will be I believe the 6th and 7th, the next Monday and Tuesday. So everyone, keep in mind, this is election time and this is our next leaders.
Okay, so this week we will find out who's running, and next week we will vote.
Yes.
Okay, well, everyone be prepared to vote for SGA. That's all the time we have for this edition of This Week in Student Government. You can watch this show along with other CU TV programming on YouTube. Simply type CU Internet TV with no spaces and click search. On behalf of Dr. Matt Jenkins and the CU TV crew, I'm Jorie Palmer. Thanks for watching and have a great week.